Hi, I'm here to do some stories from the Bible, okay, that I was supposed to do yesterday, but y'all know. So, this is the story in the Bible, okay? I told y'all I was gonna do stories for y'all too. Okay, there's a lot of stories in here too. So, this is gonna be Exodus 14:1 through 31. Y'all, this is a long one, okay? And the story is called Crossing the Red Sea. I'm gonna read it to y'all, but if I have to stop, then I will, okay? Um, it is in. Let me make sure we'll pass. I think it's in the old one. Let's see. It's a story, y'all. Okay, so I don't know if it's. It might. I don't know if it's. I don't know if this Gene Ocean be talking. Okay, so let's just read the story. Okay. Then the Lord said, "This is about us too, the Israelites. Remember, we the Israelites before all this shit happened." Okay. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and camp in front of Pi Hathras, between Migdal and the sea, in front of Baal Zebulun. You shall camp opposite by the sea." Pharaoh would say of the Israelites, "They are wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness had closed in on them. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, so that I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army, the real one. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord." Gina. And they did so. No, the fuck we didn't. You knew cats, yeah, but not my family. Um, when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the minds of Pharaoh and his officials were changed towards the people. And they said, "What have we done, letting Israel leave our service?" So he had his chariot made ready and took his army with him. That's why they eat us. He took 600 picket chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the Israelites, who was going out boldly. The Egyptian pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, his chariot drivers and his army. They overtook them, camped by the sea. Blood. By Piharada in front of Baal Zepon. Writes the story. Look at the words she put in here. As Pharaoh drew near, the Israelites looked it back, and there were the Egyptians advancing on them. In great fear, the Israelites cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it before there were no graves in Egypt that you had taken us away to die in the wilderness?" Moses also said they losing reverse psychology too. Okay, remember she took Moses the devil powers too. So Moses, but she losing his powers. Okay, she losing the real God, the Most High powers too. Okay, but we did ask him all these questions though. So this is like us talking to the devil. Okay, y'all want to see the video? Y'all can. It was having a conversation, having a meeting. Okay, has taken us away to die in the wilderness. What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt? Let us alone and let us serve the Egyptians. Okay, slavery. For it would have been better for us to serve, because they let us alone. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. We are in the wilderness, y'all. We gotta fight for survival. But Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish for you today." He didn't say all that. He was scared. Okay, for the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. Us. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to keep still. Okay, this was Gina. She framed herself as Moses, the devil. She telling the new cast that came after October the 14th, 1994, okay, or 6 months later. So April of 1995. April the 17th of 1995. She telling y'all this, because we skipped the whole 6 months, okay? So babies was stuck in people's stomachs for 6 goddamn months. Half a year, shit. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. But you lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the Israelites may go into the sea on dry ground. Then I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, so that they would go in after them. And so I would gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army, his chariots, and his chariot drivers. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gained glory for myself over Pharaoh, the Most High, his chariots and his chariot drivers, his peoples, okay? Also, she trying to convert us to her rules, like eating people and shit like that, okay? Becoming whatever the hell they are. The angel of God, who was going before the Israelites' army, moved and went behind them, Jill, or me. And the pillar of cloud moved and the pillar of cloud moved from in front of them and took its place behind them. It came between the army of Egypt and the army of Israel. And so the cloud was there with the darkness, and it lit up the night. One did not come near the other all night. Who? Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. Gina. The Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night and turned the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. Okay. Why they say nights are getting shorter. Okay. Well, I say that, but same thing. The Israelites went into the sea on dry ground, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. The Egyptian pursued and went into the sea after them. We ran to my daughter's house that night. But that 6 months later. We didn't know 6 months later though. All of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and chariot drivers, in the morning, watched the Lord in the pillar of fire and cloud, looked it down upon the Egyptian army and threw the Egyptian army into panic. Who? He clouded their chariot wheels so that they turned with difficulty. Okay, we trapped. The Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the Israelites, for the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." No, her people only. Okay, they the new Israelites, but the fake ones though. The pursuer drowned. Then the Lord says to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and chariot drivers." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at dawn the sea returned to its normal depths. Okay? 6 months later though. Okay? That was the restoration mean. As the Egyptian fled before it, the Lord tossed the Egyptian into the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the chariot drivers. The entire army of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea, not one of them remained. But the Israelites walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the Egyptian, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great work that the Lord did against the Egyptians. Moses, okay, with my daughter's body. So the people feared the Lord and believed in the Lord and in his servants Moses. Remember, I told y'all we were scared of Gina. Okay? Like we were scared of that bitch. Okay? Watch my channel, watch my vent. Something else I was gonna say on that. Yeah, she did bring the dead back, but that's another verse though. Okay, then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he had trumpet gloriously, horse and rider who had thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my might, and he had become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. See? Stole their powers. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he cast into the sea. His pitted officers were sunk in the Red Sea. The floods covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shadowed the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrew your adversities. You sent out your fury. It consumed them like stubble. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The floods stood up in a heap. My daughter Bliss. The, the deeps congealed into the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My desire shall have a fill of them. I will draw my sword, and my hand shall destroy them. You blew with your wind. Yes, she can. She can stop time. The sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. Okay, like I said, she got both of their powers. I'm hearing never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. My God, you going to tell me that, Michael. In your steadfast love, you led the people whom you redeemed. You guide them by your strength to your holy abode. The peoples heard, they trembled. Pangs seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom were dismayed. Trembling seized the leaders of Moab, Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan melted away. Terror and dread fell upon them. By the might of your army, by the might of your arm, they become still as a stone. Until your people, O Lord, passed it by, until the people whom you acquire passed it by. You brought them in and planted them on the mountain of your own possession. The place, O Lord, that you made your obi, the sanctuary, O Lord, that your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever. When the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his chariot drivers went into the sea, the Lord brought back the waters of the sea upon them. But the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. I'm just getting blood, y'all. Then the prophet Miriam, Aaron's sister, right here, y'all. This is Kia machine now. Her name, like I said, Aaron is the first machine that kills you. That's a boy. And the second machine is a girl. Her name Miriam. Miriam. We got a street in Beverly called that, but it's kind of spelled different though. Aaron's sisters took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and with dancing. And Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he hath prompted gloriously. Horse and rider who had thrown into the sea. Then Moses ordered Israel to set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. S-H-U-R, Yor. Okay, I'm getting sick. They went for 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, M-A-R-A-H-Y, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter, the fruit. That is why it was called Marah, M-A-R-A-H. And the people complained against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? He cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. Then the Lord made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he put them to the test. He said, If you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give heed to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will not bring upon you any of the diseases that I brought upon the Egyptians. For I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, E-L-I-M, where there was 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the water. My daughter's screaming, okay? See? The whole congregation of the Israelites set out for Elim, and Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month, after they departed from the land of Egypt. The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and ate our fill of bread, my daughters. For you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then the Lord said to Moses, I am going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day, God's people, the real one, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for their day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instructions or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on other days. So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, in the evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he had heard your complaining against the Lord. For what are we that you complain against the Lord? For what are we that you complain against us? And Moses said, when the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening, and your fill of bread in the morning, because the Lord had heard the complaining that you uttered against him, what are we? Your complaining is not against us, but against the Lord. I'm just gonna read it, y'all. Come on, I only got a couple minutes. Then Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation of the Israelites, draw near to the Lord, for he had heard your complaining. And as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the Israelites, they looked toward the wilderness, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, I have heard the complaining of the Israelites. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. I told y'all we were trying to tell them to stop eating people. In the evening, quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer when the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a fine flaky substance, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, it is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. Yeah, when I was a be private kid, Ma Jane used to shit in my mouth. I had to eat that shit. I ain't gonna lie, I had to eat it. I was hungry. Don't judge. Anyway, gather as much as I used to eat bugs, rats. I used to eat all that shit, y'all. Gather as much of it as each of your needs, an omer to a person according to the number of persons, all providing for those in their own tents. The Israelites did so, some gathering more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, those who gathered much had nothing over, and those who gathered little had no shortage. They gathered as much as each of them needed. And Moses said to them, let no one leave any of it over until morning. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left parts of it until morning, and it bred worms and became foul. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, as much as each needed. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much food, 2 omer apiece. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, this is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. And all that is left over put aside to be kept until morning. I'm getting Hansel and Gretel with that. They wishes. So they put it aside until morning, as Moses commanded them, and it did not become foul, and there were no worms in it. Moses said, eat it today, for today is the Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. For 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is Sabbath, there will be none. On the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, and they found none. The Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and instructions? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you food for 2 days. Each of you stay where you are. Do not leave your place on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. The house of Israel called it manna. It was like Corina seed, right? And the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omen of it be kept throughout your generation, in order that they may see the food with which I fed you in the wilderness. And when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put on Amma of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generation. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the covenant for safekeeping. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they came to a habited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. And omen is a tenth of the ephah." My daughter Jill is now 40. Okay, she was 40. She just turned 14. She is in her 40s now. It had been 27 years, but she is in her 40s because she was born in 1980. Okay, I got a camel for that. For the wilderness of sin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why do you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with us?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck with Nile and go. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock and water will come out of it, so that the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" The Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some men for us and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joseph did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, and whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hand grew weary. They took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side, so his hands were steady until the sun set. And Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this as a reminder in a book and recite it in the hearing of Joshua. I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven." And Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, "A hand upon the banner of the Lord. The Lord will have war with Amalek from generations to generations." Okay. Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro took her back along with her two sons. The name of one was Jishon, for he said, "I have been an alien in a foreign land." And the name of the other Eleazar, for he said, "The God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh." The real one. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came into the wilderness where Moses was encamped at the mountain of God, bringing Moses' son and wife to him. He sent word to Moses, "I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her two sons." Moses went out and met his father-in-law. He bowed down and kissed them, each after the other welfare, and they went into the tent. Then Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptian for Israel's sake. all the hardship that had beset them on the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. Jethro rejoiced for all the good and the Lord had done to Israel, in believing them from the Egyptian. Jethro said, Blessed be by the Lord, who had delivered you from Egyptians and from Pharaoh. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because he delivered the people from the Egyptians, and they dealt ignorantly with them. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifice to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. The next day Moses sat as judge for the people, while the people stood around him from morning until evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, What is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone? Why are the people standing around you from morning until evening? Moses said to his father-in-law, Because the people came to me to inquire of God. When they had dispute, they came to me, and I decided between one person and another, and I made known to them the statutes and instructions of God. Moses' father-in-law said to him, What are you doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and the peoples with you, for the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Told y'all. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. You should represent the people before God, and you should bring their cases before God. Teach them the statutes and instructions, and make known to them the way they are to go and the things they are to do. You should also look for able men among all the people, men who fear God, are trustworthy, and hate dishonest gain. Set such men over them as officers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them sit as what I tell y'all. Let them so $1 means 1,000 then. Let them bring every important case to you, but decide every minor case themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this and God so commands you, then you'll be able to endure, and all the peoples will go to their home in peace. So Moses listened to his father-in-law and did all that he had said. Moses chose the able men from all Israel and appointed them as heads over the people, as officers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And they judged the hundreds. They judged the people at all times. Harder cases they brought to Moses, but any minor case they decided themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went off to his own country. That crazy. Grandma is on the $20 bill. Okay. At the third new moon after the Israelites had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that very day they had came into the wilderness of Sinai. They had journeyed from Rephidim into the wilderness of Sinai and camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob and tell the Israelites, You have seen what I did to the Egyptian, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you obey my voice and keep my covenants, you shall be my treasured possession out of all the peoples to Shanice. Indeed, the whole earth is mine, but you shall be for me a priestly kingdom and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the Israelites. So Moses came, summoned the elders of the people, and said before them all the words that the Lord had commanded him. The people all answered as one, Everything that the Lord has spoken we will do. Moses reported the words of the people to the Lord. Then the Lord said to Moses, I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and so push you every offer. When Moses had told the words of the people to the land, the Lord said to Moses, Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and prepare for the third day, because on the third day the Lord will come down unto Mount Sinai in sight of all the people. You shall set limits for all the people all around you, saying, Be careful not to go up the mountain or to touch the edge of it. Any who touch the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch them, but they shall be stoned or shot with arrows. Told y'all, whether animals or human beings, they shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they may go up on the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain of the people. He consecrated the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, Prepare for the third day. Do not go near a woman, On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning, as well as a thick cloud on the mountain, and a blast of a trumpet, so loud that all the people who was in the camp trembled. Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God. They took their stand at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Shannon was wrapped in smoke, because the Lord had descended upon it in the fire. The smoke went out like the smoke of a kiln, while the whole mountain shook violently. If the blast of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses would speak, and God would answer him in thunder. When the Lord descending upon mountain to the top of the mountain, the Lord summoned Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go down and warn the people not to break through to the Lord to look, otherwise many of them will perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must concentrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them." Moses said to the Lord, "The people are not permitted to come up to Mount Sinai, for you yourself warned us, saying, set limits around the mountain and keep it holy." The Lord said unto them, "Go down and come up, bringing Aaron with you. But do not let either the priests or the peoples break through to come to the Lord. Otherwise, yeah, I finna do poor. Okay, that's what I mean. Okay. Come unto the Lord. Otherwise, he will break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them, "If I can't finish this, y'all, we doing part 2. Then God spoke all these words. "I am the Lord, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself, you shall not make for yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing children for the iniquity of parents, to the third and the fourth generation of those who reject me, but showing steadfast love to the thousands generations of those who love me and keep my commandments." So like I said, if y'all trying to pray to the real one, you should out of that bitch. You gone, okay? Sorry. "You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. For 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien resident in your towns. For in the 6th day the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, but rested the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and consecrated it. Honor your father and your mother, so that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You should not covet your neighbor's wife, or male or female slave, or ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. When all the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, the sound of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking, they were afraid and trembled and stood at a distance and said to Moses, "You speak to us and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us or we will die." Okay, so don't touch them. Okay, that's basically what it's saying. Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid, for God had come only to test you and to put the fear of him upon you, so that you do not sin." Then the people stood at a distance while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. The Lord said to Moses, "Thus you shall say to the Israelites, you have seen for yourself that I spoke with you from heaven. You shall not make gods of silver alongside me, nor shall you make for